Okay, as you know, our research model is WISER, and that means that we start with wondering, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So there are several reasons to wonder. One is you want to know the scope of your topic. Like, we have some kids who are doing research on how one song from 1969 actually shifted the entire anti-war protest movement. And we have other people who are doing Black Lives Matter. So you can see that's the scope, right? Very super, super narrow and very broad. And the difference being that it's going to be incumbent upon the person to develop a research question that's super focused for a very broad topic and you're kind of going to you're going to keep it, you're not going to have as much work to do if it's very narrow to begin with. It's not to say that it's good or bad, it's just you need to be aware of how to create an effective research question with that. So what are the issues within the topic? There can be subcategories, and you also need to know what are the more global topics, right? What controversies exist? You always want controversies, that's always helpful. You want your research question to be debatable. And then what questions do I have about the topic? So personally, what do you require? So one of the goals is, like, if you got on an elevator and somebody said, are you doing research? Oh, what are you doing research on? Be able to deliver that speech in, literally 10 to 12 seconds before your elevator hits the floor, your desired floor, right? You also want to be able to create some kind of graphic organizer around your research, your wondering, you also want to be able to develop a graphic organizer for your topic, like where does your topic fit into the greater context, the timeline, a T-chart, some kind of diagram. What points of view exist for your topic? And also really create an inventory of keywords. We've been telling you this since you were freshmen and you continue to ignore it, but honestly, that is how you move from wonder to investigate. So that is part of your job when you're wondering, is to develop that body of keywords. Do you need to go far and look deep and wide for keywords? No, Wikipedia usually gets you keywords. Even if the article is unreliable, the keywords are probably going to be pretty sound, and if they're not, you'll know fast. You use the wrong keyword, you'll figure out that it's a problem, right? So we created a little, just sort of basically a guide for you to help you understand how to get through the W's, the W's. So we created a little guide for you. So this is an assignment in Schoology. The who, what, why, where, when, the 5 W's, and then find a list of 20 keywords. 20 sounds like a lot. It can go really fast. It doesn't take a long time to come up with 20 keywords. So the ultimate goal of Wondering is to develop a research question, and that's what you're going to be doing towards the end of this activity. So we want to talk a little bit about resources for Wondering. So reference is excellent. This is a book. It looks like just a book on the Cold War, but if you look at the bottom, it says the Ultimate Reference Guide. Nonfiction texts that include introductory chapters. Sometimes those introductory chapters are really, really great, right? Nobody's saying you have to read the whole book, but sometimes just the introduction will get the work done. Informational multimedia, so actually we'll get a few slides for this. So one crash course, sure, when you're wondering, that's fine.
Hi, I'm John Green, this is Crash Course.
And then we can go to Khan Academy, can also be very, very helpful as you're wondering in your early stage of research process. Some podcasts can be absolutely outstanding, but just please know that there's no rating system for podcasts. So one thing you could check is the reviews, but appalling language can be present. They can also be completely false, like nobody's regulating this content, right? It can be 100% made up and total lies. So do check the reviews. That's probably a pretty good indicator. And then, YouTube can be great and it can be terrible. Search for the Cold War, this pushes to the top of the results. It's actually an ad for antivirus software for your computer. I think people who are concerned about the Cold War are also concerned about cyber hacking, and so therefore antivirus is a good sell. It's probably a pretty good marketing gimmick, but not going to help you at all in your research about the Cold War, right? And then overview of articles, like all kinds of overview articles, that can be helpful. So if you look at the first 15 results in Google, the first one is Wikipedia. It can be volatile, especially with controversial topics. The second one is history.com, super reference resource, but not journal worthy. I underscore that, not journal worthy. Also Britannica, fine for reference as you're wondering, but not journal worthy. The Cold War JFK library could include some primary sources or not, don't know. So take a look and see. The news articles, like you've got a really weird mishmash of this. Canadian news articles about refugees in Newfoundland, Detroit news piece about Nike missile construction in Michigan. You got a British tabloid, and then you do have analysis column inspired by Washington Post reporting there on the right-hand side. National Geographic put something out which could be great. It's called Facts and Information. Sounds like a great overview, but subscriptions required. There's a movie preview called The Cold War. Then we have that promo for antivirus software again. And then down here at the bottom, we have something called Cold War Explained 15 Minutes. I don't know anything about the Life Guide, and frankly, if you look at the About page, it doesn't really tell you much about the Life Guide. Look at their videos. They've got a bunch of historical videos, but I assume it's a professor or a teacher of some sort. I don't know that this is the best source, honestly. You've got a lot of other stuff above that that's pretty good. Then comes a video game and the movie again. And then the last one is the Cold War Museum. Museums really are not known for their great content writing. They obviously are about exhibits. So sometimes their primary sources can be outstanding, but the content, like the narrative that they write on their museum pages, not so impressive generally. So you could look, but look with skepticism. What you're going to find in these sources is a lot of common knowledge. So that's where you're finding the same information over and over and over again, source after source after source. And that's one of the reasons we're trying to find additional keywords so that you stop searching for the same words over and over again, because that's going to give you just basically common knowledge. So the checkpoint for the research question is the checkpoint for Wondering is the research question. So you want to make sure that it is very specific. Do not include the words people, society, American. Focus on a subcategory, a subgroup, specific demographic, a narrow time frame, a region, etc. It should be really unique. The goal is for it to teach you something that you don't already know. That is the whole point of research, not to actually confirm what you already believe. It should be complex. Take a deep dive. We're not going to just, look for Cold War over and over and over and over again. You might want to look for what happened with this one letter during the 13 days of the Cuban Missile Crisis that Kennedy chose to ignore. That's the kind of focus you want. Really be specific. And then consider the scope. Set yourself up for success. Make sure that this topic is doable. That's a really important piece to it. And if you'll see that we have a follow-up lesson on developing the research question that shows you how to do that. So ultimately, your activity here is to do the who, what, where, why, when, and come up with 20 keywords. You have an assignment in Schoology, and you may go.